Chase, Brett, Alex, welcome to the SABM podcast.
Hey,
Hey,
Scott.
Scott. Thanks for
Hey,
having
hey,
us.
Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how many of these. I mean, I've done a lot of these, and I don't know how many times I've had three guests on. So you guys are testing out my skills today. So here we go.
Love it.
Brilliant. Let's get
But
going.
Chase, man, maybe to kick off with you. So we connected a couple of weeks ago, and I always love to have people on here who took different career paths, kind of like alternative career paths. And, you really found your passion with what you do today. And you're working on a really cool project right now with Alex and Brett, and excited to talk about that today. But Chase, maybe just to introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah, happy to. So I'm a proud member of Annapolis class of 2005. We were plebes on 9/11, so I remember those days, and that inspired me to go to the Marine Corps. So I was an infantry officer from 2005 to 2010. And for those those out there who do their due diligence, I have to admit I did jump over to the Army afterwards. I went to the National Guard and was part of the National Guard Special Forces world. So give me a little credit. So I wanted to put that up front because the Army Navy game is complicated, but at the end of the day, there is no question it's always go Navy, always. So at least for
Whoa.
me, I know those are harsh words in a conversation about Band of Brothers.
We'll
Um,
talk later, Chase.
yeah, but exactly. But I left the academy, with this idea of just really wanting to be. I was a history major. I really love stories. I'd read Band of Brothers, as a midshipman, and I just really got into the power of storytelling. And then when I got out of the Marine Corps and ultimately out of the military, I realized like, oh, you can actually do this for a job. Now that doesn't mean it's not easy, and it doesn't mean that there's not challenges with it. But I took a different path, and I moved to Hollywood and have been out in Los Angeles for almost 15 years, working on stories. I worked at a company called We're the Mighty, which was all about celebration of service. I helped build that from the ground floor. And then I've been working on documentaries that are really, one, that celebrate military service, two are authentic, and then three are just really cool. So that's what I've been working on, and that's how I got to meet this group of esteemed gentlemen. Between Alex and Brett, they brought me a crazy idea a few years ago, and I said, well, we got to do this. We got to figure it out. So that brought us all here, and excited to tell you about it.
Yeah, well, yeah. Tell me about what this crazy idea was, and then we'd love to get Alex to hear from you and Brett as well to uh, hear how you guys all got connected.
Well, I'll give you're looking at the three producers of this. So we've come together. We really have combined forces here. And Alex was one of the cast from Band of Brothers. He played Corporal Mellet, who has a fascinating story of himself. And we all watched Band of Brothers. I watched Band of Brothers when I was when I was in the academy, before I went to the Marines, when I was in the Marines. I mean, it was the example of what leadership looked like. So I was heavily impacted and influenced by Band of Brothers. So Brett, who's my good friend, he was actually in Hollywood while I was out here producing and directing documentaries. He was the representative for the Army as a lieutenant colonel. He approved all the big movies. If you want Army's help, you had to go through Brett. So we became pretty good fast friends. Despite me being a Navy guy, he was, I get a little Army time, so he gave me a little street cred. But he came to me with this crazy idea. He called me and said, there's a group of the Band of Brothers actors that want to jump out of a out of a plane over Normandy, C-47, and we want to film it. Do you know how to do that? And I was like, yeah, I actually do know how to do that. And then we put him on a Zoom, and I'll let Brett and Alex take it from there. But we put on a Zoom. I'd never met Alex. We had never met. We got on the Zoom and said, we're going to do this. We're going to make this happen. And that started almost a 2-year journey for us.
Alex, and you were one of the guys that wanted to. I mean, was this your idea, or how did this idea come about?
Oh, well, it's obviously the show gave us an understanding of what these guys went through, what they trained, from the boot camp with Captain Dale Dye, which we did 26 years ago now. So It'll be the 25th of the launch of the show, but 26 years ago when we actually started training. And I think it really started to hit home when we started to go back to Normandy as a cast, probably around the 74th, 75th anniversary of D-Day, and sort of rotating and moving around with people, a lot of them ex-military and currently serving at that time. We really started to realize the gravitas of, well, I certainly did, of the show, of what it meant to the people of Normandy, but specifically the US military. Obviously, around towns like St. Mary-Glise and Carentan, which everyone knows from the show, very 101st and 82nd heavy with the commemorations. And we were meeting guys that were coming up to us as a cast and saying, what you guys did made me join the military, made me want to be in the Airborne. And this kept sort of happening over and over again, and really started to awaken something in our heads that, you know, we'd been part of the show and we knew the importance of the show. But until we sort of really hit Normandy, I didn't really completely understand the effect that this had on the military, the serving troops, and the guys that had gone before, and the guys that were in. And we started to realize that we really had an important job as a cast to maintain the legacy of these guys, of these citizen soldiers that joined up to fight against fascism 82 years ago. And it became more and more important to us every time we went out there and we met these troops and we met these guys, ex-military, that had served, and come up to us and we were like, we were actors. We didn't do anything. And then when you did, you kept it real, you kept it sincere and honest, and the way that you carry yourselves and the importance of what these guys mean to you still today resonates with us as the military. And through these continual events that we go through for veterans and for charities that we go back to Normandy to work with, these various charities, we were just sitting around one day watching the guys jump out of the planes for the commemorations and thinking, man, wouldn't that be cool if we could honor these guys, to really put it into a perspective of, for us to gain some understanding of what they went through, standing in a door, a small, tiny percentage of what they went through, but you know, the same emotion of stepping out of an aircraft, something that we'd never done really in the show. It was green screen and we went through the training, but to actually train, to actually pull it together, but to do it to really make people understand what these young men went through, and for us to understand as a group of actors what these guys went through. We thought, well, let's try and turn this into something. I spoke to some of my castmates and the rest of them who are just as idiotic as me, who are my brothers. You know, we're a very tight cast, and we have been since we finished the show. We are like a brotherhood. And, you know, these guys are, you know, I'm godfather to some of their kids and same to mine, and we are that close. And it really is. And from a TV show, that you don't get that in any TV show that's really been done before. And yeah, we had this idea to do it, to jump out, and our paths crossed. Mine and Brett's paths crossed just before the 80th, sort of a year before the 80th, 79th, and through was it Sean and Darren?
Darren, yeah.
Yeah, Darren, who Captain Snattle, who was a 82nd Airborne captain. He kind of started putting us in touch with people that may be able to help with it, and I struck gold by meeting this fine man, Brett, who was also along the same path. You know, he had the same vision. He, you know, not necessarily about the jump, but about maintaining the legacy of these men, of these soldiers, of these guys that served in this unit, but to also make it relevant to the guys that are serving today. And then it just grew. We started developing this idea, and we weren't sure how we were going to do it. how it's going to get pulled together until Brett said, I know a guy, which then threw us into Chase. And that was kind of our union, really. And what has made it extremely special is that there was a never give up attitude, which runs between all three of us to keep this going and to make sure we get it finished in any way we can, from putting in money ourselves to calling in favors to getting, you know, my guys to jump out of a perfectly good aircraft a few times. It's been quite the journey, but it's also, again, reinvigorated the show to us, and again made sure that it's something that we need to learn from, especially in this current climate. You know, it's we're in a very, very difficult time in many places across the world. So this is why this is such a relevant piece of documentary that needs to be brought to the forefront. And if, you know, we can get this done, which we will get it done, but, you know, we can get this done with Brett and Chase, then we're definitely onto a good thing. So then I'll hand over to Brett.
Yeah. So the jump, so that was to celebrate the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and that was in 2024. Yeah. And then that planted the seed for the D-Day to today, the Band of Brothers Legacy Project, or kind of how do those dots connect? I know Chase, when you kind of got called, you're like, I don't know if this is going to be a YouTube video or
it's all Brett's fault.
I think you weren't quite sure what you thought you were getting yourself into.
It's been a long time coming. Yeah, I mean, we can step back a little bit. I can give you a little bit of my background and give you the cliff notes of this thing, and it'll start to come together and make sense. But as Chase said, you know, Army veteran, I came in before 9/11, and I retired in 23, so 22-year Army veteran. I was an air defense officer. And during that time, I had the opportunity to teach military history at West Point, which one of the most rewarding, you know, professional and personal experiences of my life. I love everything about, you know, what West Point was about, but personally rewarding because, you know, I obviously knew the Band of Brothers story. You know, Dick Winters was my North Star. You know, I looked at Dick Winters and said, that's what a leader is. From the first time I ever saw Band of Brothers when it came out, and we all watched it, you know, on a regular rotation. I looked at that guy and said, that's who you strive to be. Of course, we all fall short. Nobody can live up to that standard, but you know, that seed was planted. So when I went to West Point to teach, I took Band of Brothers with me, and I had the opportunity to start leading staff rides to Normandy. So 2013, I got to lead my first staff ride to Normandy, and was just a kid in a candy store. I mean, I just could not believe that I was standing in this hallowed ground in Normandy teaching cadets about D-Day and why it mattered and why we should still be talking about it. And that spurred now, you know, 12 years later, just my life passion to continue to tell the story of why it matters, to venerate these men and the deeds and the sacrifices of not just that they did these things in the 1940s, but that someday Americans may be asked to do something like this again. They gave us the blueprint. They were ordinary Americans that did this. We need to continue to tell the story. We need to look to the example they set for us. That's why we are doing this. Is the whole point of the documentary, is to tell this story, because it is now starting to fade, because almost all of our World War II veterans are gone. The Easy Company veterans, sadly, are all gone. And we are now coming up upon the 25th anniversary of the Band of Brothers series. And it is sad to say, you talk to people, and the young kids who have now replaced Chase and myself in the military, sometimes, sadly, very often, they don't know Band of Brothers. And that is a crime. So we are now trying to reinvigorate this discussion of why Band of Brothers mattered to us as the GWAT generation of service members. Why was Band of Brothers so important to us? Why did I care so much about Dick Winters? Why did it hit me so hard when he passed away in 2011? It's like it mattered to me. Like I'd lost a family member because his example meant that much to me. So, fast forward, as Chase said, I had, again, the crazy opportunity to switch over to be a public affairs officer and then go to LA. I was the one Army officer in the entire Army responsible for being a liaison with the entertainment industry and trying to convince, Hollywood producers to support Army projects that inspire and inform the American people about their Army. And so Chase, immediately we hit it off. I saw in him a kindred spirit. Now, 7 years later, he and I are like brothers. And, so when I got to meet Alex through Darren, who was a captain in the 82nd, worked for me in the 82nd. And Alex, again, kindred spirit. We all came together. We all have the same passion to tell the story. And we were off and running with this veteran-led, veteran passion project to keep telling the story. That was the very long Cliff Notes version of how we got here.
We're proof, Scott, that the Army and the Navy can actually work together.
It's joint. It's joint. It's a purple project. Purple project.
Yeah. And so where are you guys at as far as producing the documentary? Like what's been done so far? What's left to do?
Yep.
We'd love to kind of hear where you're at in the timeline and how we can help and get behind it.
Yeah, I could walk you through the production side of it. And I think there's one piece that I want to highlight that Brett mentioned that's really important is, as we've gone through the rediscovery of Band of Brothers, we've gone through footage, we've had interviews, we've gone through a lot of different stuff. One of the things that just strikes me still is, and Alex will test this, the series was filmed in, 2000 into 2001. They did it, they got all this, and then it aired on 9/12/2001. So wow. We're talking about a story. I mean, you just think about the history here. When the world needed an example of what leadership looked like in combat, it showed up the next day. And it gives me chills now thinking about it. I'm like, so that's when we talk about why we're doing it. It's the same thing. It's legacy. It is this amazing story that resonates from history, that impacts our lives at a moment in history that, that we needed it. And so that's what's brought us, through the filming part of this. And we've gone through kind of 3 phases up to this point. We filmed all the training in Camp Toccoa, Georgia, where they went down the exact same places where the Easy Company soldiers in 1942 met. And I don't know if you remember, if you watch the series, go back and watch it because it still holds up. When they're out there with Captain Sobel, I mean, that is where, in Georgia, and it's miserable. That's where these guys went through jump training. That's where Alex went through jump training. Brett was there. We put him through, a condensed version of jump school, and then they jumped. They did their jump. So they became, essentially paratroopers. So that was kind of phase 1. And then phase 2 was, well, now we got to get to Normandy. So we went to Normandy for the 80th. We filmed this, and I'll give just one, quick anecdote to this. Documentary filmmaking is very much like, being in the military. It's just pure chaos. So we didn't really, we had all the pieces. The first time I met Alex, it's, now we're going to get him on camera. And I'm also looking at him, and I brought my little brother, who's a phenomenal videographer and filmmaker, worked at National Geographic. We get in the back of the C-47. There's no seats. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And then we realized that everybody else has a parachute on except my little brother. So now I've got to put my little brother in the back of an 80-year-old aircraft that still has bullet holes in it from that night back in June 1944. So I found 2 ratchet straps I brought from my truck. I put it around his belt and I said, do not tell mom. That's kind of how we got through, these segments of it. But we filmed
now it. She's going to know.
Now she's going to know. She's going to figure it out. But, we filmed all of the jumps. We filmed, beautiful jumps. We had, the guys were looking down on us. The ceremony there, I think these guys will both attest that it is not just an American ceremony. It is very much an international ceremony. The impact of that, the legacy of Band of Brothers, again, right? Not just Easy Company, but all those that went into Normandy that day in whatever capacity, from the ships out at sea, to the paratroopers. You get a feeling of how important that is. You feel it, right? It's the first time that I've ever felt like, oh, this is really bigger than I thought it was going to be. And we captured that, and that's a lot on film. And at that point, we didn't really know we had a documentary, but we knew we had something. And so then we just kept exploring it. And the last piece of this is Alex and Brett came to me, and really this is to Brett's, this is to give accolades to an Army guy when they're due. Is he allowed us to go to the 101st Airborne, to go to the Easy Company today, where those soldiers are training right now, and we got to film with them and bring the actors there. So we have that, if you think about it from the storytelling, we've got from the beginning all the way to where we are today. And seeing those soldiers where they actually play Band of Brothers every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 in the company office there in Fort Campbell, to see the impact that it has on them. That was really powerful. And then the last piece of this, we've been able to talk to some of the cast, through Alex. We've had a chance to talk to Damian Lewis, who played Captain Winters, and his experience through there. We've talked to Alex and many of the other casts that have come through there. Because as he said, this is more than just a TV show. It's about carrying legacy. And so we've been able to talk to them as well. We've been, working on how we're going to finish this. And I think, you asked us earlier, what's a goal that we could have? I mean, obviously we want to get to Tom Hanks. That's the big goal, because, this was his idea, but, we're going to push forward either way. And I think what we're really trying to do is we're trying to finish the documentary before the anniversary, the 25th anniversary next year, which is in September of 2026. And our goal, looking at the three producers on here, the three investors, the three of us that all have our skin in the game, is we want to bring a finished film to Normandy next year, and not only show the work that we've done, but show that, in Normandy to do this. I think that's a way to honor. And so that's why we came to you, Scott. I said, I think we need a little help getting to the finish line. But we want to do it in a way that one, honors the legacy, and two, does it the right way. I mean, we and I will be quiet after this, but from the fundraising standpoint, Hollywood is a little different than other industries. You can get money, but what do you give up? And in this case, we wanted to do it the right way, which means we wanted to tell the story in a way that's authentic to not only ourselves, but authentic to anybody that wore the uniform, no matter what service or when they served. And so it was really important for us to find partners that value that as much as we did.
Yeah.
And one thing to Chase talked about, again, one of the things is I know a guy, right? And so I've had no problem going and tapping into people that owe me things. So we did go to the Army. We told them about this project. They absolutely love it. I went to my old boss, General Donahue, the so-called last man in Afghanistan, who, we had those fun last 2 weeks in Afghanistan back in 21, who is now the commander of the U.S. Army Europe. He sat down with us and completely supports this project. Then I went to my old boss in LA and said, hey, this is our project. Will you support it? He took it all the way up to the Department of Defense. They support this project. So they did. They gave us carte blanche at Fort Campbell. The old Commander Major General Sylvia opened the doors to Easy Company and the 2nd Battalion 506. And they gave us a week at Fort Campbell. And we got to interview everybody. We got to talk to these 19-year-old soldiers who should not know anything about Band of Brothers. They weren't even alive when it was filmed. And they were sitting there talking the talking points that we thought that we would have to give them. Coming out of their mouth was why Band of Brothers mattered. And we got chills listening to them say these things. And like any 19-year-old off the street would have no clue why this mattered. And these soldiers were just blowing us away with the maturity and the understanding of the legacy, because they live it every day. They are Easy Company today. The lineage from 1942 to 2025, it's chilling. They're carrying that legacy today, and that's where we're at now. That's what we have filmed. And as Chase has said, we're at the finish line. We can see it. We just have to wrap up the last few little things, and then our dream is we're premiering this at the commemorations next year for the 82nd anniversary of D-Day. That's what we want to be able to do.
All right. Well, you've come to the right audience of folks that served and that I'm sure we'll want to get behind this. Chase, when you question for you, so you kind of get involved in this project, not exactly sure what it's going to be or what it's going to become. And you're a storyteller, right? I look on your LinkedIn profile and it's storyteller. Like, what was the story that you saw, or was there something like unexpected, that you're like, man, like this is like that. This is what I want to help communicate to the folks, that watch this.
Yeah, good question, Scott. I think it goes back to the word we keep using, right? Legacy, right? We all, in some form of our military service, you take one story, it gets passed on, it gets passed on, it gets passed on. I mean, Band of Brothers just had such an impact to me personally, as a young platoon commander, in the Marine Corps, and then as a team leader in the Army. I mean, I've told this to Alex on his face, so he's heard some of this, but the fact that they got it right on screen helped me get it right when I was in that role. And that I took that very personally. And I know I'm not the only one. And I know I'm not the only one that's, of many different services. But it came down to that legacy. And I looked at something that, I thought, wow, what an incredible opportunity to marry the two worlds that I'm really, really passionate about, which is, documentary filmmaking, doing the high quality and kind of crazy stuff like I was talking about, in the back of airplanes, but also with a story that matters. And so mounting those two, I don't think it took more than 15 seconds, Brett, before I was like, yeah, it wasn't.
I think it was a 2-second pitch, and he said, "I'm in."
Yeah, it wasn't a hard sell. Now, it's been a hard journey, Scott. I'm not gonna, it's never easy, right? We've had to do it. We've had to get through a lot of the production side of it. But at the end of the day, like Brett said, we are at the finish line, and that comes down to an edit, right? We've got to edit this. We've got to take all the myriad of footage we've taken over the last few years. We have a few more interviews that we want to do just to get it right with some of the other cast that's here in LA. And I think what you're going to find, right, is and we've kind of buried the lead here a little bit, is we've got access to some of the Band of Brothers footage from the original series that never made it on to screen. Right. Mm-hmm. So we get to re-examine what is one of the most iconic shows in the history of television through the lens of it was more than a TV show. It mattered to those who served, and it continues to matter. And we still get to honor the World War II generation. So for me, it was, you go back to my LinkedIn storytelling, like this is a pretty cool story that I want to be involved in.
And Alex, did you have any idea what you were getting yourself into 25 years ago? I mean, like, how old were you? I mean, how did you even get involved in Band of Brothers?
I was 22 years old when we started, when I was cast. And I was cast slightly differently to a lot of the other guys. I came in with someone who'd been a cadet, and had my sort of that military experience as a cadet, and had seen Saving Private Ryan, and thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to be part of a production like that? I had no, dreams of being an actor at that point until a friend of mine said, there's this show coming up, Spielberg's directing it, well, producing it, and with Tom Hanks, you should go for it. I was like, really? Okay. I thought, okay, I'd put myself up for it. And I mean, thousands of guys, ex-military, were going up for this. To be basically 15 ex-military, as they wanted, to work with the main cast so that they got it right. And this is what Captain Dale Dye, who maintained, who did the boot camps from the platoon right through to Saving Private Ryan. He was like, well, this is the way we want to get this done. We need to get it right. We want the guys that are looking, supporting cast around the major cast to look as though they know what they're doing. So they got ex-military. And we went to boot camp. I got accepted for that out of thousands of guys, which was incredible. And then we went to boot camp for 2 weeks, which was nothing like what you guys have to go through, but it created something within us that we still maintain to today. We got an understanding of what it's like, but it created a bond between us that maintains through to today. As this is a testament to what the show means to us, is what we're doing still. Within about 2 weeks of filming, one of the casting directors came up to me and said, look, you've been spotted by someone, I didn't know who, on camera. Would you like to come for an audition? So I was, okay, how's your American accent? And I said, I can try one. So my first audition was with a very tanned man with a big beard. And I didn't realize who that was until he opened his mouth, and it was Tom Hanks, because he'd been doing Castaway. And I was like, oh, I know that voice. And it was, yeah, it's Tom. And I sat down with Tom and read some scenes with George Khalil, who played Ali, and then read again, met Stephen, which was, again, mind-blowing. And yeah, got the part as Corporal Frank Mellett, and then was cast from there. So it was a right place at the right time. God's will, lots of things shining down, and lots of things happened in that space of a few weeks. And yeah, it was again, you ask any actor on that job, from myself right up to Damien, and it was the best job that we ever had as an actor. Not just because of what we did during the show, but what it means to us to right through to today. So it's yeah, very, very lucky to have been part of such an amazing production.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that story, and thank you for joining us today, Alex and Brett and Chase. And Chase, what's the best way for folks to actually, before we kind of wrap up, is there anything else you guys would like to cover, or anything that we missed that you'd like to share?
I would just say, I'm coming up on my 20th. I've got my 20th reunion here at the end of this year, which is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this in Annapolis. But one of the things I think is really cool about this project is that we're going to be in Normandy in 2026 in June. And if you want to come with us, we're a pretty fun crew. I think you could tell that. So come on, reach out, and we'll find a spot for you. And if you want to jump, as Brett says, we know a guy. We can make that happen.
Make it happen.
Right. And
because we'll be jumping, a lot of the cast will be jumping again. So again, that's a nice Willy Wonka golden ticket there. If you want to jump in with the cast and jump out of a C-47 on the 82nd of D-Day, then come and join us for the ride, because it's like Chase and Brett will attest, this documentary is like nothing that's been done before. On a lot of different aspects, and it's got a lot of different facets to it. Something that I've never seen before, and yeah, we've very, very lucky, all three of us, to be working on this together and to be creating it.
And Chase, what's the best way for folks to learn more about the documentary and to connect with you and see how we can help?
Yeah, so we've got a website, and Alex, you keep me right, but it's D-Day to Today, Band of Brothers Legacy, right?
Yeah,
Or it's Band of Brothers Legacy.
BandofBrothersLegacy.com.
BandofBrothersLegacy.com. You can go there. You can reach out and get in contact with all of us. And then, Scott, I don't know if we can share it on your site, but we do have the trailer too that we've been working on, so people can see some of the footage. Amazing. We've got everything from Alex's GoPro to some of the AI stuff. We've been able to repurpose old footage in a way that people haven't seen. So if you want to see something, we can make that happen as well. So
yeah, I know you sent me the trailer, so we'll certainly link to your website and the trailer in the show notes, and then also your LinkedIn profile, Chase. If we can put the link there, so people can reach out directly, and who want to help out, if that's the best way to reach you.
Absolutely. And I will, I'm going to call the Air Force out here for a second. We don't have any Air Force on the team, so feel free to reach out.
All right, guys. Well, hey, congrats on bringing this, almost bringing this documentary to life. Thank you for being on the podcast today. And here's to the clock's ticking. So we got a year and a couple of months here before the anniversary. So congrats, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, I appreciate it.